Hello, my name is Keith, aka LoLByTheNumbers, and welcome to another 2014 League of Legends World Championship video analysis. Once again, this is a video analysis, it is not a shoutcast. I will be throwing out spoilers throughout the match. I'm going to assume you have watched it, don't care, or already know who won. Once again, I'll be focusing on macro level strategy, team compositions, as well as the win conditions and how each team can pull them off, how they don't pull them off, where they could have made better choices, doing my best to analyze the match and provide useful feedback for players to learn from. This match is SK versus TSM. This is their second match in group stages. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get into picks and bans. So for SK Gaming, we see them knocking out Tristana and Ryze and Zed. Zed because TSM's mid laner is very strong on it. Tristana because that's almost all Wild Turtle has been playing at the moment. And Ryze because he's just a strong one. Dyrus has performed well on it. Actually, you doing this to bait out a pick from Dyrus. It's really well. They have a plan. They want Dyrus to get onto Maokai. They are going to go ahead and give it to him. Team Solo Mid, once again, pull out the top lane bans, focusing on Freddy, Alistar, Nidalee, Aatrox. This forces him on to Maokai, which is probably what they were expecting. Doesn't end up happening. But he could also play a couple others, but they're really just targeting him. So SK pick up Kha'Zix first. Once again, they could have got Lee Sin. Can't say that this was the best choice, but it does end up working out. It does go well with the composition they're going to put up. So while for a first pick it does seem a little strange, it's a very safe pick. It's a strong one and it fits into what SK has planned. On TSM's side, Dyrus picks up Maokai. It's one of the trifecta left up, and he doesn't want to pick Rumble first. It's been shown to be a little weak. They want to more protect the ADC. A good solid comp is what they're looking for, rather than this bully power, since they don't know who SK is picking yet. They're also picking Maokai to take it away from Freddy. They also pick up Janna. Great as a second pick. Just been very solid throughout the Worlds. Good support. Doesn't give anything really away. Over here's where we see the first part about TSM getting baited into picking Maokai. We see Swain. Freddy is one of the few people who pick Swain, and we know Swain is actually a counter pick to Maokai. He has much stronger bully potential. He has good sustained damage to go through Maokai's healing. And once level 6 comes into play, he doesn't have to fear Maokai killing him. Swain throws on his ultimate, he heals up through any of Maokai's damage, and he's high enough so when Maokai's ultimate goes off, he doesn't get bursted out. Since the mid lane isn't also picked, this could be a mid lane Swain. It's played very rarely in like solo queue or normals. You never know. SK have nothing to lose. They might be picking. So Team TSM doesn't quite know. So I like the Swain pick this early on, since they're going to pick it anyways. Morgana is also nice. It just provides some good pick potential and catch. It's decent solid support and shows up well in Worlds. On TSM's side, we see Lee Sin being picked up. Completely expected, with Kha'Zix already taken by the other side. Amazing loves Lee Sin, does well on him. Wild Turtle picks up Kog'Maw, the other hyper carry that he plays, sort of like the next Tristana. Step 2 to Tristana. It's just what they pick up. Here, SK Gaming throw 2 more loops to TSM. We see Vayne being picked up, and this is a very strange pick, especially into a Kog'Maw Janna. Morgana, Vayne really don't have any advantage in here. Kog'Maw has burst, he has a protection from Janna shield, he has the range to poke out Candy Panda. This is an instance where SK are pretty much determined to go for the 2v1. TSM should be expecting this. The 6th pickup is also interesting, as I don't think it's been played yet in the group stages. I could be wrong, but it's not a popular champion this Worlds. He's been nerfed a little, and the meta has shifted. A lot of it's about mid-game power, not the delay. However, Ziggs is this is a strong pick in this matchup. He's going to do very well. He's able to provide the wave clear that his team needs, as well as poke to deal with what Kog'Maw's also going to be tossing out. TSM, they end up picking Syndra. Decent pick. I'm not sure it's necessarily the best. They could have, once again, grabbed Yasuo. Yasuo would have done well against Swain. He would have survived against Ziggs, though I think Yasuo has a worse time against Ziggs than he does against Orianna. Would have been good against Vayne, but Vayne could probably have outdueled him too. So Syndra's a decent pick, though they did have the makings of a potential Yasuo combo with Lee Sin, Maokai, Janna. It would have also been a good choice, potentially the better one. We don't actually know. Bergerson does end up doing well on Syndra anyways. So we're going to talk about a little bit of the fake out that SK pulls off in this match. SK really baited Maokai into the pick. They were going to focus on Dyrus. They had this plan. They picked the Swain. TSM's like, alright, that's what's going to happen. We're going to have Swain on Maokai. And this is what can actually be expected. However, SK pull out a really interesting swap. They send the 2v1 top. Vayne Morgana go up. It's something TSM should have expected. They have the much stronger 2v2 lane, and they should have been looking for it. They should have found deep wards, found out where Vayne is going, and made sure to shut her down in the lane. However, they don't do this. Vayne goes up top. You get the 2v1 up top, the 2v1 up bottom. As soon as Morgana sees that TSM is not responding with Kog'Maw Janna top, she runs bottom, and we end up having Vayne versus Maokai in the top lane, and Swain Morgana in the bot lane versus Kog'Maw Janna. SK really throw TSM for a loop here, and they don't quite know how to respond to this, and we'll see that as the match progresses. The reason this works out so well is Vayne is extremely strong against Maokai. Anytime he uses Twisted Advance, she can knock him back. She's also great against tanks. Her true damage goes through Maokai's ultimate. As soon as she picks up some lifesteal, she just sustains through anything Maokai can do. Huge harass to him, constantly be pushing, and she's the strongest duelist in this game. SK's overall strategy in this match is going to be running a 1-4 split push, with Vayne being the split pusher. No one on TSM's team can match her, except for maybe Syndra, if Syndra's able to get enough damage to burst. However, Vayne can stop this simply by picking up a Negatron Cloak for Quicksilver Sash, or picking up a Hex Drinker if she so chose. And it's not what she ends up doing, but those are options for her to survive past Syndra's burst, and then take her out in the duelist potential. So SK's team will be running a 1-4 split push. This is their win condition. This is what their team excels at. This is facilitated by them sending Vayne and getting her essentially the 1v1 lane. In this game, she turns into the top laner. With Vayne being the strongest duelist in the game, TSM are going to be forced to send 2 people to deal with her. Otherwise, Vayne will just roll through turrets, roll through whatever champions she's faced against, and will carry SK to the win. The 4-man squad of SK is great at both sieging and protecting. Ziggs has all the wave clear he needs. Kha'Zix also provides good wave clear. He can shoot out the poke. He has the disengage. He gets the slow. Morgana, she has black shield, so if somebody gets stunned out by Syndra, at least she can throw the black shield on and stop the full burst. She can also use the black shield on targets for Lee Sin to stop his kick. She has good potential to create safety for the 4-man squad. Swain also is good at the turret defense. If TSM try and dive a turret, Swain will just live long enough through his lifesteal to provide a huge deterrent for TSM to attack. So that's SK's strategy. Make it through the laning phase, focus on getting Vayne ahead, and then let her split push while the other team 4-man pushes a turret. Throw Vayne in top or bottom, have your 4-man squad pushing up against the middle turret. If TSM ever send 2 people to deal with Vayne, that gives SK the opportunity to take out a turret. I would really love to see, say, early Lich Bane from Ziggs, or an early death cap, something that allows him to put on turret pressure. And unfortunately in this game he actually goes Zhonya's, and I'm not sure why, so I'll make a note of that later as well. So here we see Maokai almost killing Candy Bad. Now he rushes to level 3 because he has the superior wave clear, which is really smart, and then he goes in for the kill on Vayne, the level 3 versus 2. And that's the best chance Maokai is ever going to have. Unfortunately, he just barely misses the damage necessary. And Kha'Zix is behind, ready there to clean up the kill. This is what I was talking about. SK's Wing Edition is getting Vayne ahead. Kha'Zix makes sure to focus on that. That's what he has planned from the start. As soon as he got the red buff, he headed top. Worked out perfectly for SK. In the bot lane, we did see some craziness from TSM. TSM have no idea how to deal with this Swain. They're completely at a loss on how to deal with this bot lane, and they really shouldn't be, because TSM don't need to do anything. And here we're going to see it. They go in for the dive. They have the full advantage. They really should be able to hit this. However, they get greedy, and there's no need for them to go against this Morgana. They had Swain down. They know he has TP. They should just take what advantage they have. They went for too much more, and they played it wrong. Janna took the tower hit. Morgana still had her ignite. She hit her binding. Or no, she didn't hit her binding this one. She actually used a black shield to prevent damage that kept her alive long enough to end up killing Lee Sin. Same thing could have happened with the binding. If she had hit Lee Sin with it, he would have been stuck. But TSM, there was no need for that second dive. They had taken out the top laner. Only the support was around. That was going to give them the advantage. However, by dying, it really hurt them. It gave an assist over to Swain. Morgana now has a nice little lead, and she's going to be able to protect Swain and provide advantage. On top of that, now Swain gets to go back to the bottom lane with that teleport. He takes the full wave of EXP, and this gives him a massive level advantage. He's level 5, whereas Kog'Maw is 4, Jen is 3. So very unfortunate and not quite smart play by TSM. It's also unfortunate that they're focusing on the bot lane. There's no reason for them to even be worried about this Swain in the bot lane. They need to kill Vayne, and they needed to have focused it early. She already got the first gank from Kha'Zix. We know Kha'Zix is floating around in the top lane. TSM is giving up this whole top side to Vayne. Lee Sin with Maokai would easily be able to kill her. Maokai sets up Lee Sin with a twisted advance. Lee Sin gets in with the shield. Easy slow into easy Q. Plenty of damage, plenty of setup. Vayne is very, very weak in this situation. She's way strong in the 1v1, but if you bring in the jungler, she's very vulnerable. And this is what TSM should have been doing from the start, instead of constantly focusing on this bot lane, who they don't even need to worry about. Kog'Maw Janna will just naturally out-CS, out-push. They're very safe. There is no reason, once again, for TSM to even be focused down here. Focused on this bot lane. Leave Swain alone, let him do his thing. Kog'Maw's very strong against Swain, as Swain likes to build HP tankiness, and Kog'Maw shreds tanks with his auto attack buff. So yeah, that's a really big reason why TSM lose this game. It's because they let Vayne get out of control. She's already showing she's winning the lane. She's got about a 15 CS lead. Bot lane is already in the lead as well for TSM, even though they've done these bad plays. But here we see a big problem. Swain is 6 right now. He can bully the bot lane. He just runs at Janna Kog'Maw, throws on his ultimate, and that's it. He pushes them out of lane because of that EXP advantage he got from that misplayed dive by TSM. So going on to TSM's team strategy, they don't really have overall team strategy or cohesion. There's no real one thing that their team excels at. It's a very strong composition. They do a lot of things well. They have a solid front line in Maokai with the extra tankiness of Lee Sin. They have playmaking ability in Lee Sin and Syndra. They can get catches and picks with Syndra. Syndra can blow somebody up. They have poke with Kog'Maw. They have disengage with Janna. They have the ability to do everything pretty well. It's a well-rounded, solid composition, but there is no real point of excelling in their team. So essentially, their win condition is win game, win lane. Aside from just winning game, winning lane, their other win condition is recognizing what SK's win conditions are and shutting them down. That win condition is Vayne. And if TSM had focused on shutting her down, then they could have won this game. They would have had a much easier time in the middle. And if you've watched this before, you know that TSM does end up taking the lead in this match. However, this is because SK play their Vayne composition incorrectly. They'll play it correctly for a while with her split pushing, then at around the, I think, if I remember correctly, it's around the 30-minute mark, they just stop using Vayne as a split pusher, and this gives TSM a huge window to come back into the match. If TSM had instead just focused on Vayne, like I said, the moment they realized that Vayne was top, they needed to put all their focus onto her. Have Lee Sin come control this jungle against Kha'Zix, have him up here to get the easy ganks that Maokai can provide. It was just, TSM had every opportunity to shut Vayne down. They had the power, and they knew SK was completely focusing up here. But instead they said, okay, SK, you can have top, we're going to focus on bottom, yet they didn't know how to fight Swain. They never experienced this. Morgana Swain on the bot lane, it's not a champion you see very often, whereas Vayne is at least a champion you know exactly what she's capable of. You don't have to worry about Swain where he has this big lifesteal at level 6, so it's hard to judge how much damage you actually need under turret, how long you're going to be there, as well as on top of when he uses his snare, or you're going to get double snared by Morgana. The black shield adds a little bit more. They just didn't need to worry about it. And here we see, this is where Swain is a little bit strong, right? He has his level advantage. He goes in, and Janna's not 6 yet, and this is the big problem. The TP from Maokai is good. It does switch things around. However, Vayne gets the turret. Vayne can continue on and get this second turret. So the trade essentially in this situation is the 2 kills for 3 turrets. If Vayne could push this turret, get a lot of damage, Zig should get this middle turret, or at least get a lot of damage, and TSM just get kills. Kha'Zix comes in, he's able to deny the turret for them, so even though SK don't get the turrets, it's still a lot of damage. It's not a terrible trade. It could have been worse. When TSM dedicated 5 people to the bottom lane and still don't get a turret or an objective, that's kind of a problem play. And so once again, we see this focus onto Swain, and Vayne is left alone. She's now at a 25, almost 30 CS lead over Maokai. She's drawn Kog'Maw top. This means she's going to go bottom. They'll take out this next turret. She's still in her split push potential. So yeah, that's the win conditions, and that's all that needs to happen. Throughout this whole game, SK just needs to split push with Vayne, protect their turrets with Kha'Zix and Ziggs, and use the 4-man squad for pushing and whatnot. Just keep warding, be ready to catch TSM with some bad rotations. That's really it. So, still, we see TSM once again, they're still focusing on this Swain, and there's no reason for it. They don't even play this fight well, and he gets away. They're letting Vayne continue to scale, continue more and more farm. She's a beast. She's gonna be a beast. Everyone knows how good she is in the 1-on-1 and the dueling, and TSM are just letting her get to the point where they can't deal with her in the split push. And once again, we saw Ziggs bomb top. This is what he's good at. He's good at delaying. He's the one who's going to let Vayne be able to go all over the place. Here we we see how strong Vayne is against Maokai. Even through his ultimate, even through the Janna heal, she's still able to get it. Here, once again, we see how TSM does not know how to deal with Swain. They try for so long to kill him, Ziggs comes around and gets out the kill. They really just should have left Swain alone, moved into their team fights, into their strategy, and just dealt with him that way. They need to make sure somebody has Ignite, somebody has Grievous Wounds of some sort, not to be fighting him in the situation that they did. They can't chase him, he drains too much. It's just unfortunate that TSM got so thrown for a loop by this. So currently at the moment the game is going in SK's favor. Although the gold advantage is the same, SK are getting Vayne to that point she needs to be in. She's already got her Blade of the Rune King. This means she can go fight anyone on TSM's team. Syndra has gone Athene's Unholy Grail, which is actually the right choice in this situation, but it does mean that she can't fight Vayne either. She's not going to be able to one-shot Vayne, especially if Vayne properly uses her heal or the active from Blade of the Rune King in between being hit by Syndra's burst, so that she survives and then is able to go in and lifesteal up through auto attacks and outduel Syndra. Here we see SK's performing their proper win condition. Vayne is still split pushing. I'm going to point this out a lot because there comes a time where she stops, and that's where SK really fall into trouble and essentially lose the game, aside from the final mistake by TSM. So we're just going to see a lot more of this. So now let me talk about the lane matchups a little bit. And this is a weird one. I'll say Swain, Maokai. I mentioned that before during Champ Select. Swain has the advantage over Maokai. He has range, he can harass, he has good CC with the snare, he has good survivability, he's not really worried about mana issues. And then once level 6 comes into play, he just out-heals whatever Maokai can deal, while still being able to stick on Maokai with the slow, with the snares, and pump out consistent damage. They both build Rod of Ages, so they both scale similarly. And there's not too much Maokai can do in that situation. It's a really good matchup for Swain. However, that's not the matchup they get. So Vayne on Maokai. Vayne on Maokai, as I said before, is really rough for Maokai. Vayne has the true damage. She gets a good attack speed. She ignores a good portion of Maokai's ultimate damage reduction because true damage is unaffected. She's got the range to constantly be poking and harassing Maokai. We all know ADCs are very strong against melee champions, especially ones who don't have burst potential. Vayne quickly picks up her Blade of the Rune King or Lifesteal, which lets her sit through anything Dyrus wants to throw at her. He wants to go all in, she wins the trade, and then she heals up through creeps. It's just a very superior matchup in that sense. In middle, Ziggs against Syndra is really just a big farm fest, and I like to say that the matchup actually goes to Ziggs because Ziggs has nothing to fear from Syndra, and I'll get back to that in a second. Here we see a fight happening. It's Vayne should be split pushing. I know this dragon is coming up, but she should be up top. So there's no reason for her to be in this fight. TSM have the better 5v5. SK should just put out some wards and poke. Let Kha'Zix throw out his poke, let Ziggs throw out his bombs, and just sit from a range and sort of pester and annoy TSM. I don't know why TSM runs back this way. They had full vision of it, and it's just quite silly. Here the video freaks out. But SK make a great choice. They saw TSM got the dragon and lost, so they go take the mid turn. They go pressure up. TSM is a little bit low. They're hurting. And they run towards their tier 2 turret. Maybe they didn't expect that SK would keep pushing, but they saw them in full vision. They needed to back off. Just go around the long way, because instead they ran into Ziggs' zoning potential. They tried to go through the tiny corridor in the jungle. Ziggs throws out his satchel, his mines, his bombs, lots of AoE damage. Vayne gets the knockbacks into the stun. Organa gets snares. It's just, there was no reason for them to be walking in that direction when they knew exactly where SK was. So the dragon does turn out well for SK, even though Vayne should have been split pushing, taking the top turret and trade for the dragon, let SK poke while she moves on to the inhibitor turret, and SK just tries to delay TSM while Vayne does her work. Instead, Vayne's there, SK lose out on the fight, they lose one of their champions, they lose the dragon, and then they do go take mid turret for it. They should not have gotten the second tier 2, however, TSM once again went through the corridor, bad play, it comes out in the advantage for SK. We now see Vayne, she's got her Zeal, her Berserker Greaves, she's really scaling up. Once again, there's nothing that TSM can do to stop her, even though Dyrus is working towards his Frozen Heart, which is strong against Vayne. Because of her true damage against Maokai, it does not come to matter. For TSM's team composition, or for Syndra versus Ziggs, I'll get into that now that the fight is over. Here we see great rotational play by both teams almost. TSM unfortunately has to back, because they can't fight this. If they go for the bottom turret, they take tier 1, SK take tier 2, and if they try and push, SK go in for the trade inhibitor for tier 2 turrets. So TSM is forced to back. Unfortunately for them, it's too late. SK get the tier 2, and they trade tier 2 for tier 1. Good moves by SK. Good rotational play. Alright, with a little break, so back to the Ziggs for Syndra. I really prefer Ziggs in that matchup. He's very safe. He can nuke down creep waves very quickly. He picks up his Athenes. He runs with Barrier. This means that Syndra really doesn't have the opportunity to kill him. He outfarms her. Well, he doesn't outfarm her because she will just stand and take hits from the creep wave and then nuke it down as well. But he clears it faster. And then he's able to provide support throughout the map with his ultimate, as well as do some quick farming on Wraiths. He is able to provide long range for his team. He's really delay tactics, and it avoids Syndra. Syndra, however, on Syndra's side, she just farms, and she just kind of loses out on her usefulness as a lane bully against Ziggs. You really can't bully him. And she can't go and roam. So she did once, and her mid tower took half its HP and damage because Ziggs pushes so fast. And here's to point out, Ziggs is building into Zhonya's. I really dislike this as a choice. There's only Kog'Maw for the 80 damage, and I know you can use the Zhonya's to stop Syndra from getting off her ultimate on you, but that also puts you in a weak spot if you have to use your Zhonya's to block out Syndra's ultimate. That means TSM is already engaging on top of you, and you don't really want to be engaged upon as SK's team. If TSM is bringing the fight to you, you're losing as SK's team composition. So I would have much rather seen a death cap. You have more team fight damage, faster push potential, more damage against the turrets. Also would have liked to have seen a Lich Bane, which would be more damage to the turret as well. Could have kept up this 4-man push squad while Vayne split pushes in one of the side lanes. As for the bot lane matchup, Kog'Maw Janna, much stronger, as stated before, than Vayne Morgana. All Kog'Maw has to do is activate his range. Janna tosses him a shield. He gets a lot of free damage onto Vayne that she can't stop. They're able to bully out and push. They really should have looked for the 2v2, made sure Kog'Maw found Vayne, won that matchup. At 6, they get all the poke. They just have to make sure to dodge bindings and not let Vayne go for that all-in. Since Kog'Maw builds Trinity Force and then likes to build Way of the Rune King, he's not too bad against Vayne's all-in. Yes, he does lose it out, but he's one of the better ADCs at least putting out close to the same amount of damage. And then with the right play in the 2v2 matchup, he can still win the 2v2 engage. So here's where we see SK start to fall out of their strategy. And it's a bit unfortunate. They've taken out all the side turrets. They did very well at using Vayne to split push, having the 4-man squad in the middle, and then rotate over when she reached towers. They've been playing it well. Here Swain is out split pushing. They really shouldn't have him split pushing. He's very weak. He can't beat anyone. And he'll die to Kog'Maw. He will beat Lee Sin, but he'll die to Kog'Maw. Maybe not to Dyrus. I think Dyrus would stay even with him. They would just sort of butt heads and be neutral. However, they have Swain split pushing for some reason. Vayne should be the one up there right now. If Vayne was up top split pushing, instead of trying to fight this, she could have easily gone and taken this top turret. I know one of the big things is you want your teleport champion to be the split pusher, so you can still have pressure on things like dragons. Be prepared to move in when the other team goes for your turrets. But with SK's composition against TSM's, that's not what you actually want to do in this matchup. TSM is going to win the 5v5 because of the threat of Kog'Maw's range, with Syndra being able to put pressure onto Candy Panda. A good ultimate from her will bring Vayne very low, and in the 5v5, Kog'Maw can hit his living artillery after Syndra stun, and that should be enough to finish off Vayne. So she has a lot harder time fighting in these 5v5s, especially because she's going to get locked down by Dyrus as well. There's much more threat to SK's team in the 5v5 than in a 4v4. So what SK should be doing is they use this 4v4 squad who can't really be pushed against. If all 4 members of SK's team, minus Vayne of course, are at a turret, TSM can't really push against it. They don't have very good poke, they just have Kog'Maw, so they can do a little bit. They don't have dive potential because... well, they have a little bit of dive potential, but they don't have dive potential against SK's team. With the amount of AoE that Ziggs and Swain will put out, it's a huge deterrence against dive compositions. Say Maokai and Lee Sin go in, Swain procs his ultimate, sits in the front lines, absorbs damage, Ziggs throws out all his bombs, Morgana throws out her snare to stop somebody. Her ultimate is great for disengaging or for delay tactics under turret dives. Diving against Morgana is really dangerous. Not to mention the fact that Ziggs is going to wave clear extremely fast. You try and push, he throws out his minefield, a bomb or two, the wave's gone, you have nothing to dive with. And on top of the fact, if you dive in, he has his Mega Inferno Bomb, deals massive damage. Very dangerous for TSM to do this. This is why, in this team composition, Vayne is the better split pusher than Swain. Swain provides better defensive duty. He does more in the 4v4 or even the 5v5 than Vayne does. And Vayne out-split pushes Swain very much so. SK should just be letting Dragon go and taking these turrets, taking these inhibitors. If they send 4 people mid, let's Vayne go bottom. They can easily dictate the pace of this game, but they haven't sent Vayne split pushing for the last 5 minutes, and this is what really has given TSM the opportunity to take some fights to SK and to control Dragon without trade. And we'll see this over the next 5-10 minutes as well. Vayne starts split pushing and then she stops. SK aren't using their team comp to its full ability. They really should not be letting TSM even come close in this game. Right now, Vayne can definitely take out anyone on TSM, potentially even 2 people under the right scenario. And see, she's backing. Vayne should not be backing right now. She should be going straight up into the inhibitor. Yes, TSM are going to go towards Baron, but they can't start Baron against Ziggs and against Kha'Zix. And even Swain's just going to walk in there. They'll have the MR debuff. There's a lot of damage, a lot of AoE in such a small area. SK just needs to use their champions to delay, not engage, poke, prevent recalls, and let Vayne split push. See here, we see her, she's going top again. She could have already been at the inhibitor turret of TSM, forced at least 2 people to come back and deal with her. SK could have cleared out Baron wards, got their own vision, potentially pushed up middle as well while they rushed back. Then you have 2 points of contention, and it's essentially a 3v2. And here again, we see TSM, they're trying to engage, but SK is able to get back very easily. Throw out Satchel, zone with the minefield, Swain tosses on his ultimate, as said before, and he just walks away. It's not enough damage. Here, SK need to be chasing. TSM just tried to engage, it didn't work. SK didn't really use anything. Vayne has the opportunity to go towards the inhibitor turret. If SK had chased TSM while they're trying to back, they could have delayed and kept them busy while Vayne attacked the inhibitor turret. They could have just told Vayne, hey, these are the ones we don't see, be prepared for this. And we only see 2 people, so we're going to press into the middle inhibitor. They could have pressed the middle inhibitor, just used all this poke and this disengage to let Vayne have her dueling potential. And we do see a great catch right here by SK. They get, because of Vayne split pushing, they get TSM to make a rotational mistake. And just so happens that Lee Sin pops right in front of Vayne, and it's unfortunate. Once again, they're not using this opportunity they have. They could have kept this mid lane pushing so that Vayne could go for this top. Instead, they're backing. Lee Sin is down, and SK are not using their window of strength. And by the time they do decide to go mid, it's a little too late. Lee Sin's back up. And that's all there really is to say about this, is they're not pushing their advantage with Vayne. They're keeping the split push up, but they're not pushing it into SK space or into TSM space, and that's what they need to do. Vayne is a monster right now. So we see TSM, the SK is together, right? TSM gets their 5v5 fight. And this is exactly what SK needed to avoid. They are not strong in this 5v5 fight. We see Syndra blasts out Morgana, which is great. Removes her Morgana's ultimate, which is really strong as a disengage, as a deterrence tool, saying, hey, you come in, you're all getting stunned. So with her down, they pick on Swain, who's still pretty weak. They catch SK out in the 5v5 position, and there's no reason for that to happen. Once again, we see SK trying to go make a play, catching Kog'Maw, but the teleport from Maokai really stops that. SK needed to recognize that Vayne's short range is making her somewhat of a detriment in these fights against Syndra and against Kog'Maw. However, when they pull her out as one, she's super strong. Here we see the fight again. It's just well played by TSM. TSM is doing what they need to do. They're looking for the 5v5s. They're forcing these engagements when they can. They know they're stronger in that situation. And SK are letting it happen. So looking at items, like I said before, I'm not a fan of the Zhonya's on Ziggs. He could have got much more damage out of a death cap. It would have been more useful to his team. The Zhonya's doesn't really help him too much in this matchup. The other thing I don't like is I don't like that Swain is building toward Rylai's. Swain should be the one picking up his Zhonya's. It's really strong on him. It allows him to life leech from his ultimate while he's invulnerable. It also provides resistances, or rather armor, against Kog'Maw, whereas building the Rylai's just helps out Kog'Maw with his percentage HP damage from his auto attack increase skill from his W, and also from the fact that he has built a Blade of the Rune King. Swain going Rylai's really does nothing, and we just see him getting taken out right here. So that's also a pretty bad item choice. TSM has done well. Dyrus is doing what he can. It looks like he's going to build into Spirit Visage, which is fine. Probably would have rather seen a Randuin's Omen instead of the Spirit Visage, or even a Thornmail, something more to deal with Vayne. The sustained damage is not really going to come out of Swain or Ziggs at this point, especially because Ziggs already has his Void Staff. Would have been better for Maokai to pick up a second armor item, I believe, instead of after the Spectre's Cowl. Spectre's Cowl, then the second armor item. As for Lee Sin, he's got the locket, like it. Lots of AoE damage coming out of SK. It's a great pickup. Syndra's done things right. She's going for more of her sustained damage instead of burst. In the first bit of the game, not having the Deathfire Grass means she can't deal with Vayne. But as this game goes later, her items are better because she has more opportunity to keep Vayne back with the increased CDR, with the higher damage and all her skills. She doesn't need to push herself into Vayne for that burst, she just needs to keep Vayne back. I'm not sure why Kog'Maw doesn't have a Infinity Edge in the situation. Blade the Rune King and Phantom Dancer seems a bit overkill on the attack speed. Really would have preferred some more frontline damage, but it's okay. It works out. It does decent against Swain. And here's an interesting thing. TSM go for this. SK had the opportunity to go take the inhibitor, but they know TSM are low. And here's where we see Vayne being a monster, and the problem with TSM trying to go for Baron. Vayne comes in, she gets 2 kills, she stops everything. Kha'Zix comes in, Ziggs comes in, they get massive amounts of damage. They get 3 kills for 1, essentially. And now SK can go for Baron. It's a bit risky, but they do have the numbers advantage. Swain can also provide good tank ability once he turns on his ultimate. Ziggs should probably have been inside of the Baron pit. This is the one time we do see Zhonya's actually coming out and being useful. It was good bait. However, if he had just been in the Baron pit, he could have been fine and not had to worry about Maokai even bothering to come and attack him. So this is what I was saying earlier, and here's what we get to see. TSM are in there, they all have magic damage reduction. Here comes in Swain, lots of AoE. Here comes Ziggs, even more AoE. Vayne is just really being the focus because they know they have to take her out or she'll destroy them. But Swain and Ziggs are the ones who really come and clean up that fight. And that goes back to what I was saying earlier, is that Vayne just needs to split push, preferably on the bottom lane, and the rest of SK's team can deal with what TSM try and throw out. They just get some wards down, put a couple tricky ones in the Baron pit, and when TSM try and Baron, Swain and Ziggs can just throw out their AoE damage, deal all the AoE that they need while Baron is weakening TSM's team. This would stop TSM from being able to do Baron and would give Vayne the time she needs to split push to take an inhibitor. We still haven't seen this. Vayne isn't really pushing towards them. In the last 5 minutes, she hasn't really done any split pushing. She's trying to play with the team, which is a natural reaction, but not the right choice in this. There's still nobody who can deal with her. So TSM are now pushing. TSM know they have the better team fight, right? So they're trying to force it, and this is good. They keep moving towards things. They move towards jungle fights. They move towards Baron fights. They move towards taking turrets. They keep pushing with their team. And the reason this is working is because it is drawing Vayne into the team fights. Vayne is not ignoring this. If Vayne would just ignore the team fights, she could pull TSM apart. So SK are falling into TSM's play rather than forcing TSM to move into their play. And this is a good instance of understanding how you make another team play to your moves, and when as a team you should make your moves to draw the other team in. Vayne could split push, pull TSM apart. Instead, TSM are the ones pushing, and they're pulling Vayne into them, preventing Vayne from split pushing. This is mostly due to SK not recognizing how strong their 4-man team is at just defending, and so they're playing into TSM's hands. We still don't really see anything from Morgana, and this is unfortunate. She has built the Frost Queen's claim, and I know I said I don't really like that. It's worked out for both sides at least once this game. It saved a champion, but I still would prefer to have seen more from Morgana. She doesn't have anything yet. It looks like she's going to build towards Banshees, it looks like, but she could have gone towards a Mikhail's instead. That would have given her magic resist. She could have built towards a Zhonya's to give her more safety in the team fights. She could have gone towards a Locket just to provide herself with that magic resist and to allow more magic resist for her team against Maokai, Kog'Maw, and Syndra. It's just their choice. And here we see SK is pushing middle S5 again. And there's no reason for this. TSM is the stronger 5v5 team. They need to push S4 and push from a slow push from a range. Lots of poke with Kha'Zix, lots of poke with Ziggs. And just play delay, delay, delay while Vayne pushes up a side lane. And this kind of gives away what SK wanted to do, I think. They were setting up a trap, but as soon as TSM sees that bomb from Ziggs headed bottom, they know that SK don't plan to run down there. Throwing that bomb also removes a huge amount of damage from SK's team. It's massive. It really gave away what they were doing, and they shouldn't have done it. TSM could, at this point, go for the fight, knowing that that huge damage burst is down. They also know not to head towards the bottom jungle, because that bomb gives away that SK are not running bottom, and that they might be setting up for the trap. Right now the game is fairly even, but it all depends on who's playing what style, as mentioned before. If TSM get those 5v5 fights, they win. They're stronger. They can slow push poke with Kog'Maw. SK can't push into TSM's team or they lose. Whereas TSM can't deal with Vayne. If SK were to send Vayne off, it's almost like they're trading what goes on. And it all becomes about how well SK can defend while Vayne takes out TSM's base. Because she'll do it really fast. Here we see it was a nice try by Kha'Zix. He almost got her, almost got the kill. But we do see the strength of TSM's team. They catch him out. Lee Sin's there for the follow-up. And we do trade a 2v2. TSM's pretty low though. The channel ultimate's great. Here comes Ziggs. TSM are in a kind of a bad position at the moment. But this was mentioned before is how well Kog'Maw can actually deal out damage to Vayne. If she shows up, Vayne showed up, tried to kill him. Kog'Maw pumps out his damage. Vayne has to retreat because of the backup that Kog'Maw had. If Kog'Maw had no backup, he would have been out of his burst. Vayne would have kept the follow-up and killed him. So this is just how Kog'Maw can at least detour Vayne from all-ending him because he throws out a good amount of burst. And if he has protection of other people, he's safe. So as I've iterated before, this game probably could have been over maybe 10 minutes ago in terms of SK's favor if they had kept up that Vayne split push. It was their key to winning, and they just didn't play it right. She was split pushing to no objectives, and that's a big problem. If you're going to be split pushing, you need to be doing it for an objective. In this instance, Vayne was split push bottom, get to the tier 2 turret area, back off. Go to the top, get to the tier 2 area, back off. She wasn't accomplishing anything except getting CS. And it was just drawing the game out and allowing TSM to get to this point where they're a real strong 5v5 team. Kog'Maw is reaching hypercarry status in team fights, whereas Vayne is not as strong in team fights because of her short range. SK just allowed the game to delay out to a point that they should not have. So the control is in TSM's side right now. They just need to take the game slow and they can easily get the win. We do see pretty good rotational play by SK. They know TSM's in the Baron area, they don't quite have wards, so they rush middle, forcing TSM to respond. Either TSM gets Baron and SK take the middle inhibitor, or TSM pull away from the Baron area and show their face. Once again, Kha'Zix makes a little over-aggressive play. He feels he's strong enough with his items, but again, Kog'Maw provides so much burst, you can't really go into him like that. The Blade of the Rune King active is very important here. Kha'Zix jumps in, gets the damage, but Kog'Maw gets that active, gets the move speed to move out, gets just enough HP to survive. Here comes the Janna shield. It's not something Kha'Zix should do. Kha'Zix should not really try and be one-shotting people at this point. Yes, Kha'Zix has very high damage, but it's not that high when the match is going even. Once again here, we just saw good rotational play by TSM. They're really running back and forth to try and make sure Vayne can't get to where she needs to prevent SK from checking on to Baron. And they caught Freddy out, they caught Kha'Zix out when he tried to make a play. Very tense game, but TSM are playing it well, and they have finally, for the first time in the game, taken the gold lead. There's not too much else to say. I think I've iterated on everything there is to say so far with this match. Just kind of waiting for the next point in the game when TSM start their push, and I'll talk about why they lose and why there was no reason for this. So for now, TSM get Baron, they back off, they're going to push middle. Maokai's into a second armor item. This makes it really more difficult for Vayne. He really does need a Thornmail though before he becomes an actual threat to her. Everyone else, it's just gotten to that point in the game where everyone's at 5 or 6 items. We do see the Aegis coming out from Morgana finally, and really like that pickup. It's strong against Syndra for his whole team, providing protection. And once the locket gets in, it's really enough to stop Syndra from being able to burst out anyone on your team. It's also a better pickup than Mikhail's, because the only thing you have to worry about on TSM's team is the long-range Syndra stun. And if she hits that stun, she's probably going to get her combo off right after it, even with the Mikhail's delay. Because Syndra stun into her Q and W, followed by her ult, is real quick. Unless you're really fast on that Mikhail's trigger on the person who gets stunned, that person is probably going to get hit by Syndra's full combo anyways. So by picking up the locket, you're already providing the defense ability, as well as the shield you can proc in between Syndra's ultimate hits. And here we finally see SK returning to the Vayne split push. For a good 10-12 minutes they weren't doing it, but now they finally have gotten back to it, and this throws TSM into a little bit of a panic. They're not sure what to do because Vayne is going to beat this Maokai. There's nothing for Maokai to be able to do. They all have to go back. See, they pull him. This means SK can go push middle. Vayne has to back. I don't think she needed to fully back away. If she just ran out instead of recalling, SK could have followed TSM's team, kept up the poke, kept up the disengage, used Kha'Zix's W to slow them down, and Vayne could have continued on to this split push while SK's 4-man squad deal with TSM. And deal with TSM without having to have their big frontline engage tool there. Instead, they back off. Kha'Zix goes top for some reason. This puts SK at a really bad positional disadvantage. TSM are able to get the middle tier 2 and a lot of damage onto the middle inhibitor turret. Because of this fail, once again, to properly protect Vayne during the split push, and because Kha'Zix ran top instead of slowing down TSM make the right call of rushing middle when they see Vayne back and when they see Kha'Zix top. This is a great play. It nets them 2 turrets, opens up the inhibitor. So I hope you can take a good rotational knowledge from that. Map awareness, where you need to be. There was no Kha'Zix going top just to get us a little bit of farm. Doesn't even get proper wave manipulation. And it does end with SK losing their inhibitor. So now TSM have really taken control of this game right now. There is not a whole lot that SK can do. With the middle inhibitor open and down, this means that TSM could push one of the side lanes, and that really hurts Vayne's ability to perform a split push, because that, as a 4-man squad, it's not so easy to defend against super creeps coming down your middle and a 5-man squad coming down your side lane. So at this point, all TSM need to do, shop, heal up, grab their items, get top wave into a slow push, make sure middle is clear, then move to the bottom lane and sweep through into SK's base. Let the creeps push the top wave slowly, so that by the time you reach SK's bottom inhibitor turret, they have a creep wave up top to deal with that could hopefully take the tier 2 turret. And that would also probably pull Vayne away, which would be good for TSM. So instead, SK are trying to return back to this split push with Vayne. Like I said, they've gotten into it a little bit too late, but at least they've gotten back to recognizing what they need to do to win. If they continue to try and fight 5v5s, they'll lose. And here's where TSM panic. They're like, okay, Vayne's gonna win. Vayne's over here. She's too strong. We can't really deal with this split push. Let's rush middle. There's no reason for this. They rush middle. SK make the great decision of letting them go at the inhibitor turret, at the Nexus turrets. They come up from behind. They get this great dueling ability. They have a team much stronger in this 5v4, 4v4, because Maokai is not there. Maokai needs to be there with TSM for the front line. He has to be the engager, the initiator. He has to draw the aggro of SK's team. Instead, he TPs in. He gets to the fight late after it's already started, after TSM have already been collapsed upon. TSM get pincered by SK. Beautiful play by SK, exactly what they needed to do. Probably not entirely what they were planning, but it worked out perfectly. They get the ace. 70-second death timers mean they push up the middle with all the damage on Kha'Zix, and all the damage on Vayne. They are able to easily push through the win before TSM can even respawn. Whew, lots of talking. And so, as I said, TSM should have had this win right there. Instead of rushing middle, there was no reason for them to be rushing it. They had the win. They had the better 5v5s. Nobody could really get any more items. They didn't need to force this move. All they needed to do was take their team, slow push the top lane, clear out the mid lane, and then swing bottom and force Vayne out as a team. Just get 5 people going middle, maybe even 2 people and then 3 in the middle. Do something to swing the bot lane and use that as your final push. Push into SK's base in the bot lane, get that second inhibitor, and then you essentially win. If you get 2 inhibitors down at the same time, you have essentially won the game. The other team has huge problems coming back. And that's the end of this game. I hope you were able to take away team strategies in this and win conditions and how they were played right at some times and how they were played wrong. We saw SK using the Vayne split push effectively to get down the 6 outer turrets. However, once those 6 outer turrets were down, they really fell apart in the split push. They didn't know how to take that split push into TSM's base. They never once pressured an inhibitor turret. They had this solid 4-man squad that could poke, that could delay, and that had the ability to disengage and do great tower defense. They could have left Vayne to just 1v1, just say, Vayne, you go get the turrets, ignore everything else, take out their base, we will defend. And because of the strength of SK's ability to defend with their team, and because they had their inner ring of turrets and even some of their outer ring of turrets up at this time, they had a longer window of opportunity for Vayne to attack the base of TSM and more opportunities to delay and defend against TSM trying to get in. And if SK had ever gotten an inhibitor down, that would have been the game for SK. With one inhibitor down, that means Vayne can take the other lane, and SK's 4-man squad can go middle. This would put pressure on TSM because one champion would have to go top to deal with the super creeps, one would have to go bottom to deal with Vayne, and now you have a 3v4 in the middle, whereas your middle lane is Kha'Zix providing tons of poke. Most likely it would have been Maokai trying to deal with Vayne, Kog'Maw on the top lane with super creeps. This would let SK whittle down the mid and bottom turrets, or the mid and top turrets. Unfortunately, they did fall off on their split push. They didn't follow through with their win condition, and this let TSM get back in the game and even take control of the game. TSM recognized that their real strength was in the 5v5s against SK's team, and they got to the point where they were tanking enough to survive most of the damage, and they were able to take Barons, take team fights. They caught Kha'Zix a couple times, and then they were able to push in with better rotational play, take the mid T2, the mid inhibitor, and at that point TSM really should have won the game. They got a little bit antsy, they were still afraid of the Vayne split push, and they just got overzealous and nerves, really. They walked into SK's base, got pincered without Maokai there, and lost the fight from there. It's really a rough way to go, having the other team run all the way from their base into yours when you're controlling it, but unfortunately that's what happened. The other things to take away is you really need to recognize where the other team's strength is early on in the game. TSM had no idea what they were doing against the Swain, and they really didn't need to do anything against the Swain. Kog'Maw Janna would have been fine. They needed to put their focus on Vayne, because that was the power of SK's team, was going to be the Vayne split push. They needed to focus Lee Sin ganks on her, shut her down, let Maokai get a couple armor items, and then he should be able to be fine on his own. And with that, that is the end to this match. I hope it was informative. I hope you learned something, or at the very least it was entertaining. Notes for this match and links to all the other notes for the 2014 World Championship analysis, as well as the video links, can be found in the link in the notes of this video to my blog in the portal page. Once again, thank you for watching. My name is Keith, aka LoLByTheNumbers.